everyone, and welcome back to my reading channel. So today I thought I would do a video about Nonfiction November. I'm going to give you 4 books, one for every prompt that I am planning on reading for the prompts, and then I'm also going to give you 4 books, one for every prompt, of books that I finished that I think would fit the prompts. I just thought this would be fun because I am a nonfiction girly. I feel like I always have been, but I do think once I graduated college, or like towards the end of college when I started paying more attention to like the internet book community, I got really into fiction just because I think that's like what most people read more regularly, and so like hearing other people get excited about stuff, you usually kind of get excited about stuff. So I definitely read less nonfiction than I have in the past, but I feel like nonfiction will always hold just like a really special place in my heart. It's always like a safe place for me to go back to. I feel like if I'm ever in a reading slump, I feel like a good memoir always hits. So anyways, yes, I love nonfiction, so I'm going to tell you first about the prompt, then about the recommendation books I've already read, and then I'm going to give you the book that I'm planning on reading for the prompt. The first prompt is record. So when I heard this prompt explained, it seemed like it could either be about music or it could be more of like a record of like an experience, so a lot of like memoir, historical, anything like that. So my recommendation is called Girl in a Band by Kim Gordon. If I'm being for real though, before I picked this book up, I had no idea who the hell Kim Gordon was, which I know is like kind of embarrassing, but she was part of a band called Sonic Youth. She's like super famous. I did enjoy her memoir, and I thought it was like kind of fun because it's like a record of just like her experiences as like a rock star and just like a woman growing up, but it was also about music because she is a rock star, like I said. So super interesting, pretty fun. I just really enjoyed that. I haven't read it in years though, so who knows if I'll still like it like today, like who knows, but I do remember liking it when I read it. The book that I'm planning on reading for record is called Traveling Mercies, Some Thoughts on Faith by Anne Lamott. This was written in the 90s, which I didn't realize when I bought this, but I got it from Pals when I was in Portland this spring, and I feel like the older I get, the more interested I am in, I would say like spirituality. I would say less religion, but more spirituality. I feel like once I graduated college and I started thinking about like my life and like what I would want for myself and like I guess what I believe in, and I started doing a lot of yoga, I feel like I started reflecting just so much more on just like the world as a whole and like just like belief systems, and I guess just like what do I believe in and how does it fit in with other already like more organized, I guess you could say, religions or like belief systems. And I feel like growing up going to Catholic school till I graduated high school, I feel like when I was younger I didn't really like understand, didn't really like, I don't want to say care to understand, but I am a science kind of person. Like I studied biology in college. I love numbers and math and a lot of logic and a lot of like puzzles and like steps of like, you know, like I love things to make sense, and I love like figuring out like how to make things make sense. And so I feel like even as a child, like religion for me was never something that I like fully connected with. I feel like I was just always a little girl that was always like, so like why, or like what do you mean, like how do you know why and how do you know? And I got a lot of like, oh, you just have to have faith, and I'm like, you literally don't make any sense right now. And I feel like I've always struggled with that my whole life because I've always felt like spiritual, like very like things happen for a reason and like everything's gonna work out the way it's supposed to, as in the way it's going to, because you can only change what you can change, and worrying about other stuff is so unhelpful. And I feel like a lot of that came out of like, I would say, yoga and just like trying to find ways to help me feel less anxious. And I feel like just telling myself those truths that I know to be true, that like things are just going to work out the way they're going to, so like only do what you can. Besides that, I feel like that's a really common experience, but I feel like now that I'm older, I think it would be interesting to read about other people's experiences in the same like ways as me, whether they struggle with religion or they believe, but like I really want to know more about like how they got to where they are today, less of this is what I believe. Like I kind of want to know like their journey to their like adult belief system, I guess, if that's making any sense. And that's what this seems to be. Let me just read you like the last little chunk in the synopsis. So it says, whether writing about her family or her dreadlocks, sick children or old friends, the most religious women of her church, or the men she's dated, Lamont reveals the hard-won wisdom gathered along her path to connectedness and liberation. I don't know, yeah, it just seems to be like how she struggled with her faith and how she come to the conclusion that she does believe in God, and like, I guess like how does that fit into her life and her lifestyle. So yeah, it seems super interesting. I'm actually really excited to read this. This could be my first nonfiction November book of the year. The next prompt is element. I believe when they explain this prompt, it could be like a book with just many elements in it. It could be a specific element that the book is highlighting. She even mentioned that could be about like chemistry or like science in that sense. And so for my recommendation, I chose No One Cares About Crazy People by Ron Powers. I read this in college, so like kind of a minute ago. I remember loving it and it hitting so close to home and like really, really, really just connecting to it. I'm not sure though if it's a book for everyone. If I'm being honest, now that I'm a little older, I'm not sure if I would agree with everything Mr. Ron Powers says, but I do remember just thinking and reflecting on like his experience and his family's experience and being like, whoa, that must have been hard, and just like really liking that. I chose it for element because it says it's a blend of history, biography, memoir, and current affairs, ending with a consideration of where we might go from here. This is a thought-provoking look at a dreaded illness that has long been misunderstood. So they're talking about schizophrenia. He and his wife had 2 sons. They both had schizophrenia, or have had, and one of their sons ends up dying, I want to say because of schizophrenia in some way. I kind of forget exactly what happened to him, but I know one of them passed away because of schizophrenia, and the other son really, 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 and I'm pretty sure still does, as and up until like I finished that book, like I'm not sure what's happened afterwards, but just coming on and off medications. And I feel like his parents really, really struggling and grappling with just like what decisions are good for them and their family, and how much should their sons get to decide what's best for them, or what needs to be decided by an outside person. I would say especially regarding like medications and living situations and things like that. I guess some people on schizophrenic medications, they really struggle with like, oh, well, I'm feeling a little bit more like stable right now, so like I'm gonna go off my medications because I'm feeling good. And I feel like his dad really talked a lot about like how his sons, because I want to say the other son also felt the same way, like they would struggle with feeling good and then wanting to go off medications, and then they weren't, I guess, understanding that in their particular situations that like the medications were the things that were like making them feel good. I don't know, just very, very interesting, and I know it is not a singular experience. If it's something that you're somewhat interested in, I would definitely give it a try. Like I said, it's like super, super, I would say like sad and like darker, but it definitely makes you think and like just consider other people who just go through different things, and just like knowing that like, you know, just not everybody goes through the same things, and like you don't always know what a family is going through behind closed doors, just like that very common phrase. Like, I don't know, it's just super, super interesting, and I remember really liking it. But like I said, I feel like now that I am a little older, I'm not sure if I would agree with everything that Ron says in the book, but I do remember making it make me think differently, and just, I would say maybe consider even things I didn't consider before. I really, really liked that one. The book I chose to read for Element is called Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris. I chose this for Element pretty lazily, I would say. Like, I am just going for, it has an element of comedy, which I don't usually read. It's a collection of essays, and so I assume it's gonna have a lot of different elements in it. Just might be a good like pick-me-up, like hee 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 ha 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 book for the changing sad weather. So yep, I don't have much to say about that one, but there you go. The next prompt is border. She was saying obviously you could do like physical borders, or she was even talking about how you could talk about like sewing, and I don't know. She gave a lot of different examples. I'm not remembering all of them now, but my recommendation for this is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. I read this at least a few years ago now. Loved it so much. How to Change Your Mind, but I want to say it's like how psychedelics and something else is said to possibly maybe help with things like depression and anxiety and like alcoholism and stuff like that. I don't know, super interesting. I feel like somebody who has always dealt with, even as like a young child, with just a lot of anxiety and like worrying and like a lot of bad anxiety that I would say affects my day-to-day life like pretty regularly. I was just like super interested in like the topic, and I guess just kind of like different ways to cope with and deal with anxiety. And I really liked this book because he travels around the world literally actually trying most of these drugs and substances himself, and kind of reports back on like how it made him feel. He interviews other people who have done sort of the same type of thing and how it has made them feel. I don't know, it just seems like super cool, like a very cool concept to me, because a lot of the experiences he had, it's not like he was just like doing them alone at home. He was doing them almost like as like a guided experience with someone who has also done it, or like a doctor in the room, to make sure that he was safe and to like guide him to make this experience like actually meaningful and like impactful on like what he was trying to do, which was like help him deal with some like depression, anxiety and stuff like that. It just seems like just such a cool experience, and something that I wish, I guess, that was more like talked about, I guess. Like, again, I am obviously not an expert, so who knows like if it actually works or like blah 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 whatever, but I think it just seems like it's not really seen as like a real even like healthcare option, because a lot of these substances he was trying are like illegal. I don't know, it's just a big like loop of like, I feel like a lot of like old drug laws that just like haven't been changed. And yeah, no, I just thought it was super interesting that our author himself traveled across the world trying these substances to see how it affects his mental health. And yeah, I don't know, it was super interesting. I'm pretty sure there's like a movie or a show on Netflix or Hulu. I haven't watched it, but I'm sure it's probably good too. The book though that I plan on reading for this prompt is called The Best Catholics in the World by Derek Scally. I got this, I believe, for Christmas last year. Like I said, I grew up religious. For whatever reason, at this moment in time, I'm really interested in reading about spirituality, organized religion, and I would say just like how adults have gotten to their level of belief in whatever it is, and like how they incorporate it into like their lifestyle and just stuff like that. But this obviously also talks a lot about like the history of Catholicism, specifically in Ireland, and how just like the institution as a whole is like, it's kind of crazy how it's like still gone on, even though like so many horrible bad things were covered up and have happened in the religion. And I feel like just growing up Catholic, and I say I'm in like an German Irish Catholic, but I'm American, and I believe he's like literally in Ireland, like grew up in Ireland, and I think that is gonna be super interesting to read. I could see my family, a lot of people in my family liking this, possibly. Obviously I haven't read it yet, but a lot of my aunts and uncles who also grew up Catholic, I think maybe might find this to be a little bit interesting. So yeah, can't wait to read that. So the last prompt is secret. I'm not really sure how she explained how you can interpret this prompt. I don't really remember, but my recommendation is Hidden Valley Road by Robert Kolker. I loved this. I read it a year or two ago now. I feel like I've talked about it on this channel a lot. Like, it is probably one of my most recommended nonfiction books ever, because it deals with like really, really serious, deep topics and like a lot of like historical topics also, but it's told in almost like, I would say, as close to fiction as you can get being nonfiction. Our author is just amazing at storytelling. He knows how to incorporate the personal experiences with the historical aspects, so you're like understanding, I guess, like where the people are coming from, but also like teaching you about like, I guess, like the overhanging, like what the heck is like going on, or like how the world even ended up the way it did. But anyways, let me give you a rundown of this huge family that it's about. It's a family of, I believe, like 12 kids, and I think 6 or more of those children were diagnosed with schizophrenia. But this is one of the first families in, I believe, like the 50s or 60s that was studied by, I wish I had the book right here in my hand, but studied by, it's like the human something something genetics. Like, they were testing the genetics of like schizophrenia and bipolar, because those are very, very related. And I mean, obviously, with like over half of your children having this, they were kind of like, it does seem like really, really genetic. And I feel like they were trying to connect it back to the mom, who was never diagnosed, I don't think, with anything. But of course, it does get super dark at times. There is some abuse, so I would just say look up trigger warnings before you go into this. But it is a very, very well told nonfiction, science-y, historical, social, societal type of nonfiction book. It has so much in it, and it was amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I chose this for secret just because, like, the family, obviously at the time, well, I'd say obviously at the time, schizophrenia was like extremely not well known, and I would say really not well accepted into society. So their family, their parents, were trying to keep a lot of what was going on at home a secret. So that's why that one fits into that category. But the book that I chose to read for this has been on my TBR for so long. I didn't even buy this. I was given this when I was a barista at the bookstore. This woman just like wrapped up book club, and I was like, oh my god, like, is that a good book? Like, I've heard so much about it, but like, did you like it? Like, did your book club like it? She's like, yeah, we really liked it. Here, do you want it? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, do you want it for free? Like, here, you can have mine. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took it, and I still haven't read it. And it's called Educated by Tara Westover. I chose this for secret because I'm pretty sure this girl grows up with parents who want to like live sort of like off the grid type of thing. They're preparing for this like apocalypse of a future, and they basically keep, I'm gonna say, like, education a secret from her. They are out here just almost keeping their family a secret from like everything. Like, she isn't even, I don't know how much she even has like a birth certificate or anything like that. And yeah, no, just like really, really crazy, it seems like. I feel like the only reason I haven't picked this up was because I was hearing like the best things about this book for so long, and then it came out that people felt like she was like privileged, and she was like not always telling the truth, and I don't know, there was just like a lot going on, and I was kind of like, okay, like, I don't really know. But I feel like now that like the good hype and the bad hype have all kind of died down, because it's either, I feel like people who are going to read this have either read it or not yet. I feel like it's going to let me go into this a little bit more like unbiased, a little bit just kind of like, oh, who knows what it's going to be like. And I am excited. To pick that one up. Those are all 4 books that I plan on reading in November. Because they are nonfiction though, they might take me a little bit longer than a fiction, so we'll see if I get through all of them, if I read all of them and more, if I need to mix in some fiction somewhere in there, because I'm sure I will want to. So we'll see like just how it goes. I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to start off with though. I have no idea. But I am very, very excited. Please let me know what you plan on reading for Nonfiction November if you're participating, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.